Resplendent dragons, once the guardians of a forgotten age, where knowledge like treasure was hoarded in deposit, are rumored to have contended with shining armor-clad knight heroes questing for possession of some long sought after relic, the regal nemesis of some far off realm. These mystical denizens engaged in battle memorialized as the apex of even modern fantasy novel. Like St. George, their accolades are celebrated as myth, having survived untold generations. Such history has been mostly long forgotten by modern interpretation, the victory of which is lost in surreal definition. Welcome everybody, I'm your host Zen Garcia, this is FallenAngels.tv. Please do let me know if you can hear me, because for whatever reason I'm not able to hear myself or even the song that I played at the beginning of the show. And so I'm hoping everything is well and good and that we will have no problems. And I thank those of you that have taken the time to join us. I thank you for the fellowship and for coming to show. If you would write cooler. Okay, great. I appreciate you letting me know. All right, so we won't have any problem. I've got a very interesting show lined up for you today, and it's going to be covering Credo Mutwa and an interview that he did with a guy named Rick Martin speaking about the first times and also about these dragons, these seraphim angels, and how they had been here upon the planet even before the coming of modern humanity and the fall of our ancestors Adam and Eve, and also what is termed the Second World Age, which includes all of our incarnating into flesh form. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'm also going to share some of this testimony because it is absolutely mind-blowing. And for those that don't know who I'm referencing as far as Credo Mutwa, though a lot of you, I'm sure, have heard of him, maybe not heard of this particular interview or other aspects of it. It's not the website where it was located and that was being run to share information about Credo has since been taken down, and you can't easily just find it. As far as you know, you can of course you can keyword search, and there are things, other interviews out there, especially video interviews that he's done with David Icke and others. But Credo Mutwa is a Sanusi sangoma, which is basically a medicine man, an elder, a native elder from South Africa who has been entrusted by the elders of the African continent and of this particular tradition, which is much like a secret society that has for thousands of years, who even knows how long, but through oral traditions and other aspects have shared and archived and saved knowledge which has long been forgotten and which, as I read in the poem that I began the show with, is relegated to the realm of fantasy or fairy tale. And so a lot of people do not see any kind of truth contained within these mythical accounts about these particular beings, which in the book of Enoch it speaks of them as the fallen or rebel angels, and also as the second incursion of these particular beings, the 200 that joined the rebel angels in losing and leaving their place of habitation, their ordinances in the celestial hierarchy as far as the upper heavens. They are also part of the fallen watchers. And if you look at the wording for seraphim angel, it's Sarah is snake and Rephaim is giant, and so these are, serpent-like, snake-like, giant serpent-like, snake-like angelic beings, much like the Nakash, which is spoken of as being the shining one, which we know Lucifer also was heralded as being the shining one. And part of the definition for Nakash also is serpent or serpent-like, enchanter, magician, and shining like burnished brass. And so what we have mentioned within the gospel as the Nakash and also the fiery flying serpent or the cockatrice is the same thing as what we're going to be speaking about tonight from the hidden traditions, the forbidden lore of this shamanic tradition. And so it will be interesting, to say the least. Those of you that are familiar with my work and have studied and read from my books, in specific the Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here, I make all these connections to the Nakash of Genesis chapter 3 and that of the ancient worship of the feathered serpent, the winged snake, the flying fiery serpent, the winged guardian of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that all of these loose connections are in truth the same thing, even that of the seraphim angels, or what we talk of in mythology as the dragons of old, and what Revelation 12 speaks of as that old serpent, that ancient dragon known as the devil, and Satan, the arch nemesis of humanity. It's all the same kind of thing, and that's why we have in the very olden times, in what is called the prior times or Zep Tepe, the first times, we have the worship of these particular beings, and why it is that all of the pagan religions that were established prior to the Most High taking a chosen people for himself and being showing them the truth and giving them revelation of whom he was, helps them as a culture, and through the gospel and the writings that have come down to us as the King James Version of the Bible, or the Torah, or the Pentateuch, the Septuagint, that all of these help us to understand that the Most High God, Yahweh Elohim, and the Son, Yeshua, or Jesus Christ, that they are the creators of humanity as well as the rest of universal creation, and that the olden gods, which seem to predate the Christian gods, these pagan deities, are none other than the fallen angels, the rebel angels, those that joined Lucifer in rebellion against the Most High God and against the crowning of the Son, Yeshua, when the division of light and darkness, when he said, "Let there be light," and Christ was introduced to the sons of God, the angels of old, that the olden gods, the pagan deities, are nothing more than those rebel angels that were cast out by Christ when he came to authority and was given dominion and introduced to the sons of God in what was when light was called forth by the Most High, the Father. And so you can find detail of this also in the second book of Enoch, the book of the secrets of Enoch, where Christ is telling Enoch about the breakdown of the first 7 days and how it was he who cast out the rebel angels because Lucifer, in his envy and in his vanity, wanted to assert himself as the Most High God, and thought, it says, contrived the impossible thought of exalting himself above the throne of the Son and the Father. And so we're going to be talking about in this, in the testimony that's going to be coming forth that I'm going to be reading from, the time when the rebel angels descended from the heavens and asserted themselves as gods here upon the earth. Hello, Mur, and welcome, sister. You're saying the sound keeps going off. I hope that this isn't for everybody and that the recording is not going to be mangled like that. But if it is, please do let me know in the chat room. All right, and so just a little bit more as far as foundation for what we're going to go into. And this is probably going to be a two-part, at least a two-part series, because there's so much information. And again, it's going to be talking about the time when the rebel angels descended from the earth, what the Dogon tribe called the Nomo, when they came out of the heavens and tried to establish themselves as gods and established a caste system and a hierarchy over the pre-Adamic peoples worldwide. And so what we're going to be speaking about is that pre-Adamic age, referenced in the Sumerian text as the prior times, or what the Egyptians called Zep-Tepe. All right. And certainly if you have any questions, just post them in the chat room and I will get to them. But this will, for those that have studied and have put together the connections as I have as to who the Nakash was and how the serpent, the winged serpent or the feathered serpent, as a dragon-like being, has been worshipped worldwide. This will be interesting information for you, and it will help you to piece even further revelation to this as topic. Because again, those that are new to this information or have never heard about it, it's just beyond comprehension and even beyond grasping as any factual basis for reality and what we are dealing with as world. All right, says this from Martin. Our readers are aware of the existence of the shape-shifting reptilian extraterrestrials, and what I would like to discuss with you concerns the specifics of their presence, their leadership, their agenda, and their methods of operation at this time. So the first question I would like to ask you is, can you confirm that shape-shifting reptilian extraterrestrials do in fact exist on our planet at this time? And if they do, if you can confirm this, will you please be specific about them and where do they come from? All right, and I'm going to be skipping, I'm not going to read every aspect of this interview, but to get to what is the meat of the information, and it's those aspects which are linked to what we're going to be discussing, which is basically the question that he laid forth, this guy Rick Martin, to Credo Mutwa, and I thought it was an excellent question to lead off the discussion. Credo says, the people of Rwanda, the Hutu people, as well as the Watusi people state, and they are not the only people in Africa who state this, that their very oldest ancestors were a race of beings whom they called the Emmanuela, which means, quote, the lords who have come, end quote. And some tribes in West Africa, such as the Bambara people, also say the same thing. They say that they came from the sky many, many generations ago, a race of highly advanced and fearsome creatures which looked like men, and they call them Ziswezi. The word Ziswezi means the dival or the glidal creatures that can glide down from the sky or glide through water. For those that have read the Emerald Tablets, some of that, especially Emerald Tablet number 8, where it speaks of these beings, these Atlanteans, as being serpent-headed, and that they have the shape-shifting capacity to assume the appearance of men, the semblance of men, as it says in the Emerald Tablets. And so, for those that are doing more research on this as topic, that is another resource I would read into. Specific to this as topic is Emerald Tablet number 1, number 8, and number 6. Those will give you great, help you with this study. Everybody, sir, has heard about the Dogon people in Western Africa, who all say that they were given culture by the normal beings, but they are not. The Dogon people are but one of many. Many peoples in Africa who claim that their tribe or their king were first founded by the supernatural race of creatures that came from the sky. This is the same thing that the Chinese people, when they speak of their emperor, and the Japanese people, when they speak of their emperor as having been born from the sexual liaison of an earth woman with that of one of these mystical beings, these dragon-like shape-shifting beings. The Zulu people, who are famous as a warrior people, the people to whom King Shaka Zulu of the last century belonged, When you ask a South African white anthropologist what the name of Zulu means, he will say it means the sky. And therefore, the Zulu call themselves people of the sky. That, sir, is nonsense. In the Zulu language, our name for the sky, the blue sky, is Sibakabaka. Our name for interplanetary space, however, is Izulu. And the Wedzulu, which means interplanetary space, the dark sky that you see with stars in every night, also has to do with traveling, sir. The Zulu word for traveling at random, like a nomad or a gypsy, is Izula. Now you can see that the Zulu people in South Africa were aware of the fact that you can travel through space, not through the sky like a bird, but you can travel through space. And the Zulus claim that many, many thousands of years ago, there arrived out of the skies a race of people who were like lizards, people who could change shape at will, and people who married their daughters to a walking extraterrestrial and produced a power race of kings and tribal chiefs. There are hundreds of fairy tales, sir, in which a lizard female assumes the identity of a human princess and poses as her and gets married to a Zulu prince. And this Mbulu was a lizard which has the body and the limbs of a human being, but a long tail. I'm going to be skipping to certain highlighted portions. Credo is telling him about a story of a marriage between an earth woman, a princess, and one of these beings. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read a portion of it. And the princess said, "Yes, you can." And as the lizard, which was a taller one, came close to the girl, she spat into the girl's eyes and she began to change. That is, the lizard suddenly changed into a human shape, and this lizard began to look more and more and more like the girl, with the exception of her long pointed tail. Alright, now I'm going to skip just a little bit past the story. Now, sir, this story has got many versions in it. Throughout South Africa, amongst many tribes, you'll find stories of these amazing creatures who are capable of changing from reptile to human being, and from reptile to any other animal of their choice. And these creatures, sir, do really exist. No matter where you go throughout southern, eastern, western, and central Africa, you'll find that the description of these creatures is the same, even amongst tribes which never, throughout their long history, had contact with each other at all. And so there are such creatures. Where they come from, I will never claim to know, sir, but they are associated with certain stars in the sky. And one of these stars is a large group of stars which is part of the Milky Way, which our people call Ingiyab, which means the great serpent. And there is a red star, a reddish star, near the tip of this huge rim of stars, which our people call Isona Nakayamba. All right. Now, this star called Isona Nakayamba, I managed to find its English name. It is the star called Alpha Centauri in English. Now, this, sir, is something that is worth investigating. Why is it that, well, over 500 tribes in parts of Africa, which I've visited in the last 40 or 50 years or so, all of them describe similar creatures. It is said that these creatures feed on us human beings, that they at one time challenged God himself. Think about the war in heaven. Challenged God himself to war because they wanted full control of the universe. And God fought a terrible battle against them. And he defeated them, injured them, and forced them to hide in cities underground. They hide in deep cavities underground because they are always feeling cold. In these cavities, we are told, there are huge fires which are kept going by slaves, human, zombie-like slaves. And it is further said that these Zuswazi, these Mbulu, or whatever you choose to call them, are not capable of eating solid food. They either eat human blood or they eat that power, the energy that is generated when human beings on the surface of the earth are fighting and killing each other in large numbers. I want to make a comment here. Oh my goodness. I just lost my place, but I should be able to find it real quick. But anyways, I want to make a comment here as to a Farsight Institute. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, John and I, thank you, Mer. John and I did a show on the pyramids, and I can't remember exactly what the name of that show was, but if I can, I'll look it up. It's on my YouTube channel under Endeavor Freedom. I'll see if I can find it real quick. But anyways, in that show, he and I, he broke down this interview that the Farsight Institute had done. And for those that don't know, the Farsight Institute is a organization, a private enterprise of old military remote viewers, and that they use their abilities to look into some of the more exotic questions, and without telling the people that are going to do the remote viewing what the target is. Oh, I found it, so I'll post a link into the chat room. But you might want to listen to this show, those of you that have access to the chat room. Those of you that are going to be listening to the archives later, just go to YouTube and search The Great Pyramid, Farsight Institute Remote Viewing. All right, in this show, we break down and make comment on the data set that these two remote viewers were able to bring forth when they were asked to remote view the pyramids and also how they were built. And in that particular, in the data that they brought forth and that they shared in this interview, which it was completely shocking to them, they did not expect this. They spoke about these overseers, the overseers of the slaves that they used in building the pyramids, and they said that there was exotic energy technology which gave them the ability to move these giant stones almost as if they were a feather, and they were in no way lugged or rolled on beams of wood or pushed into place. They were lifted up by these energy which they were also could be utilized for weapons, but these energy devices that gave them the ability to move these huge stones and into place, and without exerting a large amount of effort or needing a huge amount of stress. And the two remote viewers spoke about these beings, these overseers, as being praying mantis type people or reptilian in appearance. And in that particular interview, all of this comes forth, but they speak about what we are talking about right now, with, what Credo spoke about, how they live deep underground and that they had these huge fires and that they had enslaved almost like these beings which they made. It was almost like a beehive, and all these beings, these pre-Adamic beings, they utilized as slaves to do their bidding, and that they also were demonic in that they fed off of humanity, the blood, and were cannibalistic. All right. Oh, let me post that into the chat room. And so John, in this show, he plays a bunch of these clips and asks me to comment on them as he's playing them. And so these clips are directly from the video, which you have to purchase the video. It's like $15, and you can do that from the Farsight Institute. But we share audio snippets from the most relevant portions in this interview, and so I would suggest those of you that can to listen to it. All right, continuing. They hide in deep cavities under... Oh, I read that part. Next part. I met people who have fled from the early Masaki in Rwanda from years ago, and these people were horrified by what was happening in their country. They said that the slaughter of the Hutus by the Watusi and the Watusi by the Hutus is actually feeding the Emmanuela monsters, because the Emmanuela like to inhale the energy that is generated by masses of people being terrified or being killed by other people. This also reminds me of the poem that I wrote, Forward Until Dawn, where I speak about in that poem how the feathered serpents actually feed off the energy of, like war is a ritual, and how all the soldiers wear these certain images and certain medals and certain military insignia, and all of that is an offering to these dragon-like beings, these feathered serpents, and being interdimensional, and they feed off of the fear and the energy that is released from the slaughter of innocents and of people during war. All right. And the word Emmanuela means the Lord who came, a word that anyone can discover in Rwanda amongst the Rwandan Hutu and Watusi people. It's very similar to the Hebrew word Emmanuel, which means the Lord is with us. Emmanuela, the ones who came, the Lords who are here. Our people believe, sir, that we, the people of this earth, are not masters of our own lives. Really, although we are made to think that we are, our people say that black people of all tribes, all of the initiated ones, all of these shamans everywhere in Africa, when they get to trust you and share their deepest secrets with you, they say that with the Emanuela there is Imbulu, and there is another name by which these creatures are known. This name is Chitauli. Now the word Chitauli means the dictators, the ones who tell us the law. In other words, they who tell us secretly what we are to do. Now it is said that these Chitauli did a number of things to us when they came to this planet. Another name that Credo calls them is the Chitauri, which those of you that are familiar with his work have probably heard of him mentioning of them in that way. All right, continuing. I'll check the chat room for your commentary here in just a minute. Please forgive me, but I must share this story with you. It is one of the strangest stories that you find everywhere, anywhere in Africa, in shamanic secret societies and other places where the remnant of our ancient knowledge and wisdom are still preserved. It is that originally the earth was covered by a very thick blanket of fog or mist, and that people could not actually see the sun in the sky except as a nimble of light. And they also saw the moon at night as a gentle claw of light in the sky, because there was this I apologize. As a gentle claw of light in the sky, because there was this heavy mist and the rain was always falling in a steady drizzle. There was no thunder, and however, there were no storms. Now, I want to make one further comment here. In my book, Sons of God, when I speak about the timeline of creation, I talk about how the earth, the old earth called Tiamat or Maldek, when it used to be where the asteroid belt is now and before its destruction at that time, that as it's mentioned in the second chapter of Genesis, that there was a time when there was no rain and there was not yet man to till the ground. That speaking about the pre-Adamic earth, or this old earth when it was called Tiamat, that I postulate in my book, especially in this chapter on the timeline of creation, I talk about how the old earth was fully enveloped and covered by water, and there was not a landmass that had protruded from this one ocean, and that the earth then, much like the outer planets, like Neptune, Uranus, the outer planets, that they were completely enveloped. It was completely enveloped in a cloud layer, and that this is what the Most High is referring to when he says that there was not yet rain and there was no man to till the ground. And it wasn't until after the destruction of Tiamat, when one of the moons of Nibiru split it asunder, that this cloud layer disappeared. And the water canopy was burst, and the stars then made appearance. And so for those that want to know more about what I'm talking about, reference the timeline for creation in my sixth book, Sons of God, because I detail all of this information that I'm laying out and speaking to you, and which Credo talks about here. And also I talk about this in my seventh book, Skyfall, the Angels of Destiny. All right, continuing. The world was thickly covered with great forests, great jungles, and people lived in peace on earth at that time. People were happy, and it is said at that time we human beings did not have the power of speech. We only made funny sounds like happy monkeys and baboons, but we did not have speech as we now have it. And in those centuries, people spoke to each other through their mind. A man could call his wife thinking about her, thinking about the shape of her face, the smell of her body, and the feel of hair as a woman. That a hunter would go out into the bush and call out for animals to come, and the animals would select one of their number, which was old and tired, and this animal would offer itself to the hunter so that he may kill it quickly and take it as meat to his cave. There was no violence against animals. There was no violence against nature by human beings at that time. Man used to ask for food from nature. He used to come to a tree and think about fruit, and the tree would allow some of its fruit to fall to the ground, and man would take it. And then it is said, however, that when the Chitauli came to earth, they arrived in terrible vessels which flew through the air, vessels which were shaped like great bowls, and which made a terrible noise and a terrible fire in the sky. And the Chitauli told human beings, whom they gathered together by force with whips of lightning, that they were great gods from the sky, and that from now on they would receive a number of great gifts from the god, or these gods. These so-called gods, who were like human beings, but very tall, with a long tail, and with terrible burning eyes. Some of them had 2 eyes, yellow, bright eyes. Some had 3 eyes, the red, round eye being in the center of their forehead. These creatures then took away the great powers that human beings had, the power of speaking through the mind. Only the power of moving objects with their mind, only the power of seeing into the future and into their past, and the power to travel spiritually to different worlds. All of these great powers the Chitauli took away from human beings, and they gave human beings a new power. Now, the power of speech. But human beings found to their horror that the power of speech divided human beings instead of uniting them. Because the Chitauli cunningly created different languages, and they caused a great quarrel between people. Also, the Chitauli did something which has never been done before. They gave human beings people to rule over them. And they said, these are your kings, these are your chiefs, they have our blood in them. They are our children. And you must listen to these people because they will speak on our behalf. If you don't, we are going to punish you very terribly. Before the coming of the Chitauli, before the coming of the Mutwa creatures, human beings were spiritually one. But when the Chitauli came, human beings became divided, both spiritually as well as by language. And then human beings were given strange new feelings by the Chitauli. Human beings started to feel unsafe. And so they started making villages with very strong fences of wood around them. Human beings started becoming country makers. In other words, they started creating tribes in tribal lands, which had borders which they defended against any possible enemy. Human beings became ambitious and greedy, and they wanted to acquire wealth in the form of cattle and seashells. All right, let me check the chat room real quick. All right. I can. Dominic wants to know if I would take calls, and so yes, I will take calls if you'd like to. Just let me know which area code, because there are people already having called in from different numbers. And so if you do want to call, let me know in the chat room. I'll go ahead and take calls now until the end of the show for those that might want to make a comment or share something which is connected to, relevant to this as topic. And so I'll check back here in just a couple minutes. Murr says they could be the ones referred to in the Bible as maybe the locust army. And I absolutely agree with you, Murr, that they are spoken about in Joel chapter 2 and also in Revelation chapter 9, the locust army, and in Revelation 12 and 13 also speak about these particular beings, and that in Isaiah with the flying fiery serpents, the cockatrice, or the dragons of old, in Ezra chapter 2, Ezra 2 chapter 15, where it speaks about the return of the dragons of Arabia. It's the same kind of thing. All right. I'm not sure if that individual is still with us in the chat room, and so we're just going to continue on. But if you did want to call in, welcome to. I just ask that you kind of stay on topic, if you can. If not, and you just have something you'd like to share, certainly do so. All right, continuing. And another thing that Chitauli forced human beings to do, they forced human beings to mine into the earth. The Chitauli activated human women and made them to discover minerals and metals of certain types. Women discovered copper, women discovered gold, women discovered silver, and eventually they were guided by the Chitauli to alloy these metals and to create new metals which had never existed in nature. Metals such as bronze and brass and others. Now the Chitauli further removed the sacred rain-bringing mist from the sky, and for the first time since creation, human beings looked up and saw stars, and the Chitauli told human beings that they have been wrong in believing that God dwelt under the earth, From now on, the Chitauli told people of this earth, the people of earth must believe that God is in heaven, and they must do things here on earth which would please this God who is in heaven. You see, originally human beings had believed that God was underground, that she was a very great mother who dwelt under the earth, because they saw all the green things growing from under the earth. The grass came from below ground. The trees grew from below ground. And the people had believed, therefore, that the dead people who died go underground. But when the Chitauli turned humans' eyes toward the sky, people started believing now that God is in the sky and that those who die from this earth don't go underground, but go up into the sky. Alright, I'm skip just a little bit more. I hope that you're finding this interesting, because I found it fascinating. And I'm not in any way claiming that this is 100% accurate. You have to remember that this is the wisdom, the oral tradition, and the sacred knowledge that has been passed down through the Sanusis, these sangomas, these medicine men of Africa, and that this is, this is the information that has been shared to us by Credo, which I'm really glad that he did share this information, because, as the secret societies and the forbidden lore and forbidden knowledge, we as a public are not privy to this information, and so this, he felt it was relevant to what we were dealing with as the New World Order, and so he decided to make it public and to share it with David Icke, and through David Icke with the rest of the world. Okay. Oh, dadgummit. I lost my place again. Give me just a minute to find where I was. But I think it's interesting too that it seems to line up, with the war in heaven, the rebellion of Lucifer and the seraphic angels being cast out of the heavens. Much like what Christ speaks of in Luke 21, that I saw Lucifer as lightning cast out of the heavens, which aligns with what in the second book of Enoch, it speaks of, the rebel angels being cast out of the heavens. Okay, I found my place. Now, sir, another thing that the Chitauli told our people, it is said, is that we human beings are here on earth to change the earth and to make it suitable for God to come down one day and dwell in it. And it is said that they who work to change this earth and make it safe for the serpent god, the Chitauli, to come and dwell in it, will be rewarded with great power and with great wealth. Okay. How interesting, the serpent god, huh? Does that not align up with Revelation 12? That old serpent, that ancient dragon known as the devil and Satan, who deceiveth the whole world. According to the ancient books which were written by the people of Sumeria out of clay, gods came out of the sky and forced human beings to work for them, to mine gold for them. This story is confirmed by African legends throughout Africa, that gods came out of the sky and made us into their slaves. They made us into slaves in such a way that we would never realize that we are slaves. One other thing that our people say is that the Chitauli prey upon us like vultures. They raise some of us, they fill some of us with great anger and great ambition, and they make these people they've raised into great warriors and make terrible war. But in the end, the Chitauli do not allow these great leaders, these great war chiefs and kings to die peacefully. The warrior chief is used to make as much war as possible, to kill as many of his people and those he calls enemies as possible. And then, in the end, the warrior chief dies a terrible death, with his blood being spilled by others. You know, that lines up exactly with the way that the New World Order uses these puppets. You know, whether it's presidents, prime ministers, kings, or queens, that they will use them to drive the agenda of the New World Order. And then once they are, once they have been worn out and utilized in the way that the New World Order does or needed to use them, they then are expendable and they are burned. And this happens also to a lot of CIA operatives, or, you know, those that are connected to the New World Order, these secret societies, those that are on the lower rungs of the compartmentalized aspects of the New World Order, those that are used as basically like errand boys or assassins, or that do things to enable the agenda, but that often once they are used and are needed no longer, they are taken out. And this happens a lot of time, which is one of the reasons why I don't understand why people would want to become part of the CIA or to take jobs, even though, you know, they're patriotic and they believe that they're doing good things for the sake of the country or our flag, that they are putting forth effort to serve our country in higher manner and higher ways, but that because they are largely expendable, that, you know, they're used in such ways, and they're allowed to be decimated and destroyed and wiped out without even second thought. And it reminds me of that whole The Bourne, you know, that whole series, The Bourne Legacy, or the show with Jack Ryan, where he gets once he's no longer needed, he gets released, and then the other operatives are targeting him for assassination, to be wiped out. That this kind of thing happens often. All right, Mur says this, yes, and maybe it will help us to not have fear and know we have power over them. Father says that they may not touch a hair on our heads if we are marked by him, the eternal Father. Yes, absolutely. And that the other thing, as far as we are to be innocent as doves, but wise as serpents, and that it's my opinion that the Most High meant we are to know the inner workings of the New World Order, and also the agenda of the secret societies and those, the seed of Cain, because they really do worship Lucifer, the feathered serpent, the Nakash, that ancient dragon, that old serpent, the same thing, which goes back very, very ancient in the history of the planet. And also, it's my opinion that if we were ever to have real information released as to the ruins, the ancient ruins, and the statues that are found on Mars and even that on the moon, that the worship of the feathered serpent goes very far back, and that I bet that the whole reverence for the feathered serpent or the dragon, that it would be found in these other planets, and in these other ancient ruins. All right. Continuing. Credo says, Sir, I believe these creatures are everywhere on earth, and with respect, sir, although I hate talking about myself so much, I am a person who has traveled to many parts of the world. I have been to your country, the United States, sir. I have been to Australia. I have been to Japan, amongst other countries. And no matter where I have gone, sir, I've found people telling me about creatures like this. For example, in 1997, I visited Australia, and I traveled a lot to try and find the black people of Australia, the Aborigine. And when I did find them, they told me a number of things that astonished me very, very much. The same things that I found in Japan, I found in Taiwan, everywhere where there are still shaman and traditional healers, you find these amazing stories. Now let me tell you, sir, what I found in Australia alone. That the Australian Aborigine people, who call themselves Koori, which means our people, the Koori people of Australia believe in a great creating God called Bayami, sir. A Koori shaman, in fact, several of them drew me pictures of this Bayami, and one of them showed me a rock painting representing this strange creator God who came out of the stars. And when they placed their drawing in front of me, what they showed me was a Chitauli. I recognized it from my African initiation. It had a large head. It had large eyes, which were stressed by the artist. It had no mouth, and it had long arms and incredibly long legs, sir. This was a typical depiction of a Chitauli, which I knew from my own people in Africa. I ask myself why here I am in a country many thousands of miles away from Africa, and here I am seeing a being known as the Biyami or Bimi, who is a creature with which I, the African, am familiar. Amongst the Native American people, I found, for example, amongst certain tribes in America, tribes such as the Hopi people, and those people who stay in those buildings called a pueblo. I found that these people, they have got what are called kachina creatures, where people wear masks and disguise themselves as certain creatures. And some of these kachinas are very, very tall, with huge round heads, exactly as we have in Africa. I found similar creatures in America. In Africa, we call these creatures igwagwu, or we call them by another name called chinyawu. The kachina of the Native American people and the chinyawu of our people are identical beings. Now, why should this be? When were American Native people and Africans in contact? When? This is one of the greatest mysteries of all time. It is one of many things that I found throughout the world which left me utterly amazed. There are such creatures, and the sooner skeptics amongst us face up to this fact, the better it shall be. Why is humankind not progressing? Why are we running around in great circle of self-destruction and mutual destruction? People are basically good. I believe this. People don't want to start wars. People don't want to destroy the world in which they stay. But there are creatures, or there is power that is driving we humans toward self-annihilation. And the sooner we recognize this, the better. All right, we'll skip again a little bit more. Let me get to another relevant part. It's a very long interview, and it covers a lot of topics. But I wanted to focus on this aspect of the interview. There's also a portion in this interview where Credo speaks about his being abducted and how he had had seed taken from him. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this. But I can tell you, sir, that these creatures which people wrongly call aliens are not aliens at all. Over many years of looking into this thing, trying to understand it, I can tell you this, that the Mantindani, and the other kinds of alien beings that our people know about are sexually compatible with human beings. The Mantindani are capable of impregnating African women. The sangoma will sometimes examine the woman, and if the sangoma finds that the woman has been pregnant and had somehow had her fetus removed, a thing which when it is done by the Mantindana, results in specific injuries to the woman, which anyone with experience can recognize. Then the sangoma knows that the woman is telling the truth. Also, the smell which clings to people who have been through the hands of the Mantindana. That meticulous man, which is unforgettable, always clings to all women who have been impregnated by the Mantindana, no matter how much perfume or powder they try to use. So Credo is talking about, and this is a phenomena that it happens among those that are abducted by these particular beings, and that the abduction phenomena is associated with the Chitauli, or these dragons, these serpent reptilian-like beings, and that the phenomena, as it says in Genesis 6, with the sons of God mating with the daughters of humanity and creating a race of giants, a hybrid race of beings, that this phenomena is the same thing as what we are referencing now with the alien abduction phenomena. And that often the children, these women that become impregnated in such way, they are allowed to carry the fetuses for a certain period of time, and then the fetuses, the children, are taken out or stolen from them. And that these kind of ongoing genetic experimentation has been happening for a very long time. And so this is one of the things that we find referenced in these African oral traditions. All right, I'm going to try to cover just a little bit more ground here. No, sir. If these aliens are from a faraway planet, why are they able to impregnate women? And why did that strange creature which was naked with red pubic hair, which climbed over me on that working table, why did it have an organ which, though slightly different from that of a normal woman, was still a recognizable female organ? The creature's organ was in the wrong place. It was slightly more in the front, where that of a normal woman is between the legs, but it was recognizable, and it looked like a female organ, and had hair like a woman's organ. So, sir, I believe that these so-called aliens don't come from a far away at all. I believe that they are here with us, and I believe that they need substances from us, just as some of us human beings use certain things from wild animals, such as monkey glands, for certain selfish purposes of our own. I believe, sir, that we should study this dangerous phenomena very, very clearly and with objective minds. Far too many people fall into the temptation of looking upon these aliens as supernatural creatures. They are just solid creatures, sir. They are like us, and furthermore, I'm going to make a statement here which will come as a surprise. The gray aliens, sir, are edible. The next part, which I'm not going to read this, speaks about how one of his shamanic friends had found a corpse of one of these gray aliens, and that he and his wife and his friend, that they had consumed a portion of this being, and that having consumed this portion, they experienced vision. I'll read just a paragraph about it. And one last incident was reported in the newspapers not so long ago. An African who believes that these creatures are gods, when they find the corpse of a dead gray alien, They take it, put it in a bag, and drag it into the bush where they dismember it and ritually eat it. But some of them die as a result of ingesting that thing. Okay, I'm going to read just a little bit about his experience in doing this. It was as if we had ingested a strange substance, a drug like no other on this earth. Suddenly our feelings were heightened. When you drank water, it was as if you had drunk a wine of some kind. Water became as delicious as a man-made drink. Food began to taste amazingly. Every feeling was heightened, and it's indescribable. It was as if I was one with the very heart of the universe. I cannot describe it any other way. And this feeling of amazing intensity of feeling lasted for over 2 months. When I listened to music, it was as if there was music behind the music, behind the music. When I painted pictures, which is what I do for a living, and when I was holding a particular color on the tip of my brush, it was as if there were other colors in that color. It was as if it was an indescribable thing, sir. Even now I cannot describe it. But let me know. Go to something else. Many, many centuries ago, before the first white man came to Africa, we African people encountered a race of alien beings which looked exactly like the European white man who were going to invade Africa in our future. These alien creatures are tall. Some of them are rather well built, like athletes, and they have slightly slanting blue eyes and high cheekbones. And they have got golden hair, and they look exactly like the Europeans of today, with one exception. Their fingers are beautifully made, long, and like those of musicians and artists. Now these creatures came to Africa out of the sky in a craft which looked like the boomerang of the Australian people. And now when one of these craft comes down to land, it creates a whirlwind of dust which makes a very large sound indeed, like that of a tornado. In the language of some African tribes, a whirlwind is Zungar Uzungo. Now our people gave several names to these white-skinned aliens. They called them Wazunga, a word which loosely means God, but literally means people of the dust devil or the whirlwind. So here he's talking about the tall whites, which is another group of these alien beings. I'm only going to be able to cover just a little bit more. Oh, let me check the chat. Yes, this is very, very bizarre. Olive Tree says very bizarre. And yes, absolutely it is. In Zaire, called now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, white people are called Watendena or Walende. This again means a god or a white creature. And the word Watende not only is used to refer to the pink-skinned alien, but is also used to refer to the field Chitauli. In Zaire, when shamans talk fearfully about the lords who control the earth, they refer to them not as Chitauli, but they refer to them euphemistically as Watende. That is, the white creature which carries a light. Because at night the Chitauli's forehead eyes glow like red lights in the dense bush. They glowed like the rear lights of an automobile in the dense bush. So Watende, quote, the white creature or the light, that is what the Chitauli are called in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I think that this is really the last that I'm going to be able to cover. I'm just going to share commentary. As far as this information, yes, it's very bizarre, and the fact that this is sacred, secretive wisdom that is passed down through the lines of medicine men in the African continent, and that Credo was one of these, the long line of these particular shamanic beings in this ancient wisdom tradition that was allowed, granted, and privy to this knowledge. And that deciding that we as a people, as a collective humanity, not understanding our predicament, and that these beings really do exist, and that they have imposed a matrix of control, a prison planet-like system to keep us all enslaved to their will, and that they are through the secret societies and those organizations which are loosely knitted together to serve them and to bring forth the agenda of the New World Order, that it's because we don't know about them that they are able to manipulate us in such way, and that they are able to continue on with the charade. And it's my opinion that the strong delusion, which is referenced in the Bible, and which talks about, in my opinion, we as the last generation, the fig tree generation, not understanding our predicament, that so many of the people of the world would be willing to accept these beings as our gods and to worship them as such. And that because we do not understand who they are, nor our own place within the hierarchy of the caste system that has been imposed since ancient times. And think about the cultures like the over there in India, where the caste system still exists and is honored, that was established by these ancient beings, these fallen angels, that many people are still under the governance of such manipulation. And so, and now with the whole Ancient Alien series, and how they are trying to establish that Lucifer, as the light bearer, that he only intended humanity to have free will opportunity to enjoy our lives, and that bringing the mysteries, the secrets of the heaven down to us, that he was a benevolent being, and that he helped us as far as culture and as far as the comforts of life and living, that he enabled us to gain technological advancement and knowledge so that we could be more comfortable in our quality of life. I mean, the whole strong delusion is being established, and we are indoctrinated to it, into it, not understanding the covert manipulation that is driving the New World Order and the push for world government. And that the sons of Cain, seed of the serpent, has been behind the scenes since the garden, since the fall of our ancestors. They have been pushed. Well, we're at the end of the show, and so I'm going to just encourage you to be open-minded and to look into this bizarre and strange information, because it's my opinion that it's going to come out sooner or later, and you want to be on the right side of understanding, on the side which won't find you bending knee to accept the mark of the beast. God bless all. I pray that we are all counted among the elect and the righteous and allowed a return to our first estate. May we be worthy, like wise virgins, to be counted among the elect and the righteous. In Yeshua, Yahuwah's name I pray. Amen.